The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the county courthouse as people hurried past with their briefcases and folders. Inside courtroom number 7, something very unusual was about to happen. A little girl named Lily was sitting on a big wooden chair that made her look even tinier than she already was. Her feet couldn't even touch the floor. Lily was only 3 years old, but she had seen something terrible happen. A few weeks earlier, she had been walking with her mom on their usual evening stroll around the neighborhood. They always took the same path, past the corner store, down Maple Street, and around the small park where Lily loved to feed the ducks. But that night, everything changed in just a few seconds. Her grandmother, Mrs. Patterson, sat right behind Lily in the courtroom. She kept reaching forward to pat Lily's shoulder and whisper, "It's okay, sweetheart. Just tell them what you remember." But Lily hadn't said much of anything since that scary night. The doctor said she was in shock, which meant her little brain was trying to protect her from the bad memories. Detective Johnson had been working on this case for 3 weeks now. He was a tall man with kind eyes who had talked to hundreds of witnesses over his 20-year career. But he had never had to get information from someone so young. When he first met Lily at the hospital, she just stared at him with big, sad eyes and wouldn't say a word. Her mom was lying in the bed next to them, covered in bandages and hooked up to machines that beeped and hummed. The hit-and-run accident had happened so fast. 1 minute, Lily and her mom were walking hand in hand, talking about what they would have for dinner. The next minute, her mom was on the ground, and a truck was driving away really fast. Lily remembered screaming and running to her mom, but after that, everything was fuzzy in her memory. The problem was that Lily was the only person who saw what happened. The street was quiet that evening. No other cars were around, and the nearest house was too far away for anyone to see clearly. Without Lily's help, the person who hurt her mom might never get caught. But how do you get a 3-year-old to remember and talk about the worst day of her life? Judge Martinez had been working in family court for many years. She had seen lots of difficult cases, but this one was really tough. She knew that children Lily's age could remember things, but they often got confused about what happened and when. Plus, Lily was clearly scared and upset. The judge wanted to help, but she also had to make sure that whatever Lily said would actually help catch the bad guy. The lawyer defending the case, Mr. Thompson, wasn't trying to be mean, but it was his job to question whether a 3-year-old could really be trusted to remember things correctly. He had prepared lots of questions about how children's memories work and whether Lily was too young to understand the difference between what really happened and what she might have imagined. Meanwhile, the prosecutor, Ms. Rodriguez, believed that children often remember more than adults think they do. She had read about cases where young kids noticed details that grown-ups missed, but she was worried too. What if Lily got too scared to talk? What if the courtroom was too scary for such a little person? As everyone waited for the hearing to begin, Lily sat very quietly in her chair. She was wearing her favorite pink dress, with little flowers on it, the same dress she had picked out for her mom's birthday party just 2 weeks before the accident. Her grandmother had brushed her curly hair until it shined, and she was holding a small stuffed elephant that she took everywhere. But even with her favorite things around her, Lily looked lost and frightened. The courtroom was nothing like anywhere she had ever been. The ceiling was so high that it seemed to go on forever. The walls were covered with serious-looking pictures of old judges. Everyone was wearing dark suits and speaking in quiet, serious voices. For a little girl who was used to playgrounds and cartoon shows, this place felt like another world. The court reporter, a nice lady named Mrs. Chen, had set up her special typing machine to write down every word that was said. She kept looking over at Lily with a sad smile, remembering her own granddaughter who was about the same age. She had typed thousands of hours of testimony, but she had never recorded the words of someone so young. People in the gallery, that's what they call the seats where people sit to watch, were also staring at Lily. Some were reporters who had heard about this unusual case. Others were legal students who wanted to see how a court would handle such a young witness. A few were just curious neighbors who had read about the accident in the local newspaper. Dr. Williams, a child psychologist, was also in the courtroom. The judge had asked her to be there in case Lily got too upset or needed help. Dr. Williams had worked with traumatized children for 15 years, and she knew how hard it could be for them to talk about scary things. She was worried that pushing Lily too hard might make her feel worse, not better. Detective Johnson kept checking his watch. He had spent weeks trying to find other evidence, but there wasn't much to go on. The accident happened on a quiet street with no traffic cameras nearby. They had found some broken glass and paint chips from the truck, but that wasn't enough to identify who was driving. They needed Lily to remember what she saw. The detective had tried talking to Lily several times, but she always just shook her head and hid behind her grandmother. He had brought coloring books and toys, thinking that might help her relax, but nothing worked. The little girl seemed to be locked inside her own scared thoughts. Judge Martinez finally called the court to order. Her voice echoed in the big room as she explained what was going to happen. She used simple words, trying to make things less scary for Lily. But the little girl just sat there, swinging her legs back and forth, looking like she wanted to disappear. "Lily," the judge said gently, "we know this is scary, but we really need your help. Can you tell us what you remember about the night when you and your mom were walking?" But Lily didn't answer. She just looked down at her hands and stayed quiet. Her grandmother reached over and squeezed her hand, but still nothing. The prosecutor tried next. "Lily, do you remember what color the truck was that you saw?" Again, silence. Lily seemed to shrink even smaller in her big chair. Mr. Thompson, the defense lawyer, started to stand up to object, saying that clearly this child was too young and too upset to give reliable testimony. It looked like the hearing might be over before it even really started. That's when something completely unexpected happened. Officer Martinez, who worked with the police department's K-9 unit, quietly opened the back door of the courtroom. He had brought his partner, a beautiful German shepherd named Rocky, as part of a new program to help child witnesses feel more comfortable. Rocky was trained to work with people who had been through terrible experiences. He was gentle and calm, and he somehow seemed to understand when people were sad or scared. The dog had helped dozens of adults feel better during difficult court cases, but he had never worked with someone as young as Lily. As soon as Rocky padded quietly into the courtroom, something magical happened. Lily looked up for the first time since she had sat down. Her eyes got wide, and a tiny smile appeared on her face. For a moment, she forgot all about the scary courtroom and the serious grown-ups staring at her. All she saw was a beautiful dog who looked friendly and safe. The moment Rocky stepped into the courtroom, everything changed. It was like watching a flower bloom in fast motion. Lily, who had been sitting so quietly and looking so scared, suddenly perked up in her chair. Her little face lit up with the kind of pure joy that only children can show when they see something wonderful. "Doggy," she whispered, and it was the first word anyone had heard her speak clearly since she had arrived at the courthouse that morning. Officer Martinez, Rocky's handler, had seen this happen before, but never quite like this. He was a veteran police officer who had worked with dogs for over 10 years. Rocky wasn't just any police dog. He was specially trained to help people who had been through terrible experiences. The big German shepherd had a gentle soul that seemed to understand exactly what people needed, even when they couldn't say it themselves. Judge Martinez paused the proceedings, unsure of what to do. This wasn't something they taught you about in law school. She had been expecting to deal with a difficult situation involving a traumatized child, but she hadn't planned for a police dog to completely change the atmosphere in her courtroom. Rocky moved slowly and carefully the way he had been trained to do around upset people. His handler had taught him to read body language and to know when someone needed space or when they wanted him to come closer. As he walked toward the front of the courtroom, his tail wagged gently, but he kept his movements calm and predictable. Lily watched every step Rocky took. Her eyes followed him like he was the most interesting thing she had ever seen. She had always loved dogs, but her family lived in a small apartment where pets weren't allowed. The only dogs she usually got to see were the ones at the park, and her mom always told her not to pet strange dogs because you never knew if they were friendly. But there was something different about Rocky. Maybe it was the way he moved so carefully, or the way his brown eyes seemed kind and patient. Whatever it was, Lily felt something she hadn't felt since the night of the accident. She felt safe. Mrs. Patterson, Lily's grandmother, noticed the change immediately. She had been so worried about her granddaughter. For weeks, Lily had barely eaten, barely played, and hardly talked to anyone. The happy, chatty little girl who used to tell long stories about her imaginary friends had disappeared. But now, watching Lily's face as she looked at Rocky, Mrs. Patterson saw a glimpse of the old Lily coming back. Detective Johnson was amazed, too. He had interviewed hundreds of witnesses, and he knew how important it was for people to feel comfortable, if you wanted them to tell you the truth. He had tried everything he could think of to help Lily relax, bringing toys, speaking softly, even having female officers talk to her instead. Nothing had worked. But this dog was doing something that all his years of experience couldn't do. The prosecutor, Ms. Rodriguez, felt a flutter of hope in her chest. She had been prepared for this hearing to be a disaster. How do you question a 3-year-old who won't talk? How do you get justice for a family when your only witness is too scared to speak? But maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. Even Mr. Thompson, the defense lawyer, seemed touched by what was happening. He was supposed to be arguing that Lily was too young and too traumatized to give reliable testimony. That was still probably true. But watching this little girl's face light up for the first time was something that went beyond legal arguments. He was a father himself, and he knew what it looked like when a child started to feel better. Officer. Martinez whispered something to Rocky, and the dog lay down about 6 feet away from Lily's chair. He didn't try to get too close too fast. Instead, he just rested his big head on his paws and looked at her with those patient, gentle eyes. That's when something truly extraordinary happened. Lily started talking to Rocky, not to the judge, not to the lawyers, not even to her grandmother. She started having a conversation with the dog as if they were old friends meeting in a park. "Hi, doggy," she said, her voice still quiet but much clearer than before. "What's your name? Are you a nice doggy?" Of course, Rocky couldn't answer back, but he seemed to understand that she was talking to him. His tail thumped softly against the floor, and he tilted his head slightly, the way dogs do when they're listening carefully. Mrs. Chen, the court reporter, wasn't sure if she should be typing this down. Was a conversation between a 3-year-old and a dog considered official testimony? She looked at the judge, who nodded slightly. Whatever was happening here, it was important, and it needed to be recorded. "You have pretty eyes," Lily continued, talking to Rocky as if there weren't 30 other people in the room listening to every word. "They look like chocolate. I like chocolate, but Grandma says I can't have too much or my teeth will fall out." Some people in the gallery smiled at that. It was the first normal, childlike thing Lily had said all day. Dr. Williams, the child psychologist, was taking notes. She had studied how animals could help traumatized children, but seeing it happen in real time was remarkable. Lily kept talking, to Rocky, telling him about her favorite TV shows, about how she liked to help her grandma make cookies, about how she missed her mom who was still in the hospital. The words just started pouring out of her, like water from a dam that had finally burst. "My mom is sick," she told Rocky seriously. "She has bandages and she sleeps a lot. The doctors are taking care of her, but I miss her." "Do you miss people, too?" Judge Martinez felt her eyes getting watery. She had presided over thousands of cases, but this was different. This wasn't just about legal procedures and evidence. This was about a little girl who had been carrying a terrible burden all by herself and who was finally finding a way to let some of it out. Detective Johnson leaned forward in his seat. He could see that Lily was becoming more relaxed and talkative. Maybe, if they were very careful and very patient, she might be able to tell them what she had seen that night. But he knew they had to let her go at her own pace. Rocky seemed to sense that his job was important. He stayed very still, just listening to Lily's voice and occasionally moving his ears or blinking slowly to show that he was paying attention. Dogs are amazing at reading emotions, and Rocky could probably feel all the tension and hope in the room. "You're a police dog, aren't you?" Lily asked, studying Rocky's harness and the badge clipped to it. "Police dogs are brave. My mom says police officers help people when bad things happen." The courtroom was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Everyone was hanging on every word this little girl said. Nobody wanted to interrupt or scare her back into silence. "Something bad happened to me and my mom," Lily continued, her voice getting a little quieter. "We were walking and then... She stopped talking and looked down at her hands. For a moment, everyone worried that she was going to close up again, the way she had been doing for weeks. But Rocky seemed to sense that she needed encouragement. He lifted his big head and made a soft sound, not quite a bark, but a gentle woof that seemed to say, "It's okay. I'm here. You can keep talking." And somehow, that simple sound from a dog did what weeks of therapy and encouragement from adults couldn't do. Lily looked back up at Rocky, took a deep breath, and started talking again. Lily took that deep breath and looked straight into Rocky's gentle brown eyes. It was like the dog was giving her courage just by being there. She started talking again, but this time her voice was different. It was still quiet, but there was something stronger in it now. "Rocky," she said, speaking directly to the dog as if they were the only ones in the room. "I need to tell you about the scary night. Can you help me be brave?" Rocky's tail moved just a little bit, and he kept looking at her with those patient, understanding eyes. Officer Martinez had trained Rocky for situations like this, but he was amazed at how the dog seemed to know exactly what to do. "We were walking," Lily began, her small hands moving as she talked, the way children do when they're trying to explain something important. "Me and Mommy were going to see the ducks. We always go see the ducks after dinner. Mommy says the ducks like to eat bread, but we're not supposed to give them too much because it's not good for their tummies." Everyone in the courtroom was holding their breath. This was more than Lily had said about that night since it happened. Dr. Williams, the child psychologist, was watching carefully, ready to step in if Lily got too upset. But so far, the little girl seemed calm, like talking to Rocky was helping her feel safe. The street was empty, Lily continued, looking right at Rocky like she was telling him a story. Mommy was holding my hand, and we were singing our walking song. "Do you know walking songs, Rocky?" Mommy made one up for me. It goes like this: left foot, walking along, left foot, right foot, singing our song. She actually sang a little bit of it, and her voice sounded almost normal for the first time in weeks. Mrs. Patterson, her grandmother, had to wipe tears from her eyes. She remembered that silly song. Lily's mom had made it up when Lily was learning to walk, and they sang it every time they went anywhere together. Detective Johnson was taking notes, but he was trying to be very quiet about it. He didn't want to do anything that might remind Lily that this was an official police investigation. As far as she knew, she was just talking to her new friend Rocky about something that had happened to her. "Then we heard a sound," Lily said, and her voice got a little quieter. "It was like when Grandma's washing machine makes that loud noise, but louder. And there were lights coming down the street really, really fast." Rocky made that soft woof sound again, like he was encouraging her to keep going. Somehow, that simple sound from the dog was more comforting than all the "it's okay" and "you're safe now" that the adults had been saying for weeks. "The lights were really bright," Lily continued, squinting a little like she was remembering. "Mommy pulled me to the side of the street, but the truck... It was red, Rocky. A big red truck with a loud sound." This was the first time Lily had clearly stated the color of the vehicle. Detective Johnson felt his heart beating faster, but he stayed perfectly still. This was exactly what they needed to know, but he couldn't push her or ask questions. She had to tell Rocky in her own way, at her own speed. The truck was coming so fast, Lily said, and now she was making hand motions like she was showing Rocky how the truck moved. And it had a light that was broken. Not broken off, but broken like when I dropped Grandma's favorite cup and it got cracks all over it, but it didn't fall apart. Mrs. Chen, the court reporter, was typing as fast as she could. This description of a cracked headlight could be crucial evidence. But she was also amazed at how clearly this 3-year-old was describing what she had seen. When adults witnessed accidents, they often got confused about details or couldn't remember things clearly. But Lily seemed to have noticed everything. "Rocky," Lily said, and her voice got very serious. "The truck hit my mommy." The courtroom was so quiet it felt like everyone had stopped breathing. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. But it was also the hardest part for Lily to talk about. Rocky seemed to sense that this was the difficult part. He lifted his head a little higher and looked right at Lily, like he was saying, "I'm here. You can tell me. It's okay." Mommy fell down, Lily continued, her eyes getting watery but her voice staying steady. "She made a scared sound, and then she was on the ground and she wasn't moving. I was so scared, Rocky, I didn't know what to do." Judge Martinez felt her own eyes getting wet. She had heard testimony about accidents and violence many times before, but hearing it from someone so young, someone who had experienced something so terrible, was heartbreaking. "But Rocky," Lily said, and suddenly her voice got stronger again. "I remembered something important. Something Mommy taught me." Everyone leaned forward just a little bit. What had her mother taught her? Mommy always said that when scary things happen, you should try to remember the details so you can tell someone who can help. She said our brains are like cameras and we can take pictures with our minds. Dr. Williams was amazed. This was actually a very advanced concept for a 3-year-old to understand, but clearly Lily's mother had been a smart woman who prepared her daughter well. "So I tried to take pictures with my mind," Lily explained to Rocky. "I looked at the truck really hard, even though I was scared. And Rocky, I saw something on the back of the truck." Detective Johnson's pen stopped moving. This was new information. They had been focusing on the front of the truck where the damage would be, but Lily had noticed something on the back. "There were numbers and letters on the back," Lily said. "Mommy taught me a song to remember numbers and letters. Do you want to hear it, Rocky?" Before anyone could even think about how to respond, Lily started singing. It was a simple melody, the kind that gets stuck in your head, but instead of regular words, she was singing letters and numbers. KRJ 327. That's the song. "The truck was singing," she sang, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Detective Johnson almost dropped his pen. A partial license plate, sung in a melody so a 3-year-old could remember it. This was incredible. "Mommy taught me that song for important things," Lily explained to Rocky. "She said sometimes we need to remember numbers for phone calls or addresses or license plates. She said license plates are like name tags for cars." The prosecutor, Ms. Rodriguez, felt her heart racing. This was exactly what they needed, a partial license plate, clearly remembered and consistently reported. But she forced herself to stay calm. They couldn't celebrate yet, and they couldn't do anything that might upset Lily or make her think she had said something wrong. "The truck stopped for a little bit," Lily continued, still talking directly to Rocky. "A man got out and looked at where Mommy was laying. He looked really scared and sad. But then he got back in the truck and drove away really fast. He didn't help Mommy," Lily added, and for the first time she sounded a little angry instead of just scared. "Mommy always says we should help people when they get hurt, but he just left." Mr. Thompson, the defense lawyer, was writing notes furiously. Even though this testimony was damaging to whoever owned the truck with those license plate numbers, he had to admit that Lily sounded very credible. Her story was consistent, detailed, and delivered in the innocent, straightforward way that children tell the truth. "Rocky," Lily said, looking serious again. After the truck left, I sat with Mommy and held her hand until the police came. I sang our walking song to her because I thought it might make her feel better. And I kept singing the truck song too so I wouldn't forget the numbers. Officer Martinez looked down at Rocky, who was still lying calmly beside Lily's chair. The bay dog had done something remarkable today. He had helped a traumatized child find her voice and tell her story. More than that, he had helped her remember crucial details that might bring justice for her family. "Thank you for listening to me, Rocky," Lily said, reaching out her small hand toward the dog. "It feels better to tell someone who understands," Rocky gently moved closer and let Lily pet his soft fur. As she stroked his head, she looked up at the judge for the first time since she had started talking. "Rocky says I did good," Lily announced to the courtroom. "And I think he's right." After Lily finished singing her license plate song, the courtroom stayed completely quiet for what felt like forever. Everyone was trying to process what they had just heard. A 3-year-old had just provided the kind of detailed witness testimony that experienced detectives dream about getting from adult witnesses. Detective Johnson was the first to move. He carefully pulled out his phone and stepped toward the back of the courtroom, trying not to make any noise that might disturb Lily or Rocky. His hands were actually shaking a little as he typed the partial license plate into the police database. KRJ 327. If this information was correct, and if the truck was registered in their state, they might finally have their answer. While the detective worked on his phone, Lily kept petting Rocky and talking to him about other things. She told him about her favorite cartoon show, about how she was learning to tie her shoes, and about the Get Well card she had made for her mom with crayons and stickers. It was like telling Rocky about the scary night had freed her up to be a normal little kid again. "Rocky," she said, scratching behind his ears the way she had seen people do with dogs at the park, "do you have a family? I bet you do. I bet they're really proud of you for being so good at helping people." Officer Martinez smiled. Rocky did have a family. Martinez's own wife and 2 kids, who loved the big German Shepherd like he was their own pet. But right now, Rocky was working, and he seemed to understand how important his job was today. Judge Martinez was watching all of this with amazement. In her 20 years on the bench, she had never seen anything like what was happening in her courtroom. She had handled many cases involving child witnesses, and it was always difficult. Children got scared, they got confused, they sometimes made up details or forgot important ones. But Lily seemed different. Maybe it was Rocky's presence, or maybe it was just who Lily was as a person, but her testimony felt genuine and reliable. Mrs. Patterson, Lily's grandmother, was crying happy tears. For the first time since the accident, her granddaughter seemed like herself again. The scared, quiet little girl who had barely spoken for weeks was talking and laughing and acting like a normal 3-year-old. Whatever happened with the legal case, this moment was a victory all by itself. Dr. Williams, the child psychologist, was taking notes about everything she was seeing. This was going to be an important case study about how therapy animals could help traumatized children. She had read about similar situations, but seeing it happen was completely different. The bond between Lily and Rocky was helping the child process her trauma in a way that traditional therapy might have taken months to achieve. Suddenly, Detective Johnson's phone buzzed with a text message. He looked at the screen, and his eyes went wide. He had gotten a hit on the license plate search. KRJ 327 belonged to a red Ford pickup truck registered to a man named Tom Wilson, who lived just 15 minutes away from where the accident happened. The detective's heart started, beating faster. This was it. This was the break they had been waiting for. But he had to be careful. They needed to verify everything before they could make an arrest, and they definitely couldn't do anything that might upset Lily or make her think she was in trouble. He quietly showed his phone screen to the prosecutor, Ms. Rodriguez. She read the information and had to bite her lip to keep from smiling too big. After weeks of dead ends and frustration, they finally had a solid lead. But like Detective Johnson, She knew they had to handle this carefully. Meanwhile, Lily was still chatting with Rocky, completely unaware of the excitement her testimony had caused among the adults in the room. She was telling him about her mom's job at the library and how her mom read her stories every night before bed. "My mom has the best voice for reading stories," Lily told Rocky. "She does different voices for all the characters. When she reads about pirates, she talks like this." And Lily did a funny pirate voice that made several people in the courtroom smile despite the serious situation. "When she gets better and comes home from the hospital, I'm going to read stories to her," Lily continued. "I'm still learning all my letters, but I know some words. I can read cat and dog and mom and love." Judge Martinez felt her heart squeeze. This little girl clearly adored her mother and had no idea how serious her mom's injuries were. The doctors had said that Lily's mom would recover, but it was going to take months of physical therapy and rehabilitation. Detective Johnson walked back toward the front of the courtroom, moving slowly and quietly. He caught the judge's attention and gestured toward the hallway. Judge Martinez nodded and called for a brief recess. "Lily," the judge said gently, "we're going to take a short break. You can stay here with Rocky and your grandma if you want." "Okay," Lily said happily. "Can I keep petting Rocky? He likes it when I scratch behind his ears." "Of course you can, sweetie," Officer Martinez said. Rocky's tail wagged, which seemed to be his way of agreeing. While Lily stayed with Rocky and her grandmother, the judge, the lawyers, and detective, Johnson stepped into the hallway for a private conversation. "We got a hit on the license plate," Detective Johnson said quietly. "Red Ford pickup registered to Tom Wilson. He's a local contractor with a small business doing home repairs." "Any previous record?" Ms. Rodriguez asked. "Clean record, but here's the interesting part," Detective Johnson continued. "I called his business phone number, and it went straight to a voicemail saying he's been out of town for family reasons for the past 3 weeks. That's exactly how long it's been since the accident." Judge Martinez frowned. "That could be a coincidence, or it could be someone who panicked and ran." "There's more," Detective Johnson said. "I drove past his house on my way here this morning, just following up on some other leads. There's a red pickup in his driveway with front-end damage and a cracked headlight on the driver's side." The prosecutor felt her pulse quicken. Everything was lining up exactly with what Lily had described, but Mr. Thompson, the defense lawyer, raised an important point. "Even if you find the right truck, you still have to prove who was driving it that night," he said. "And you have to be careful about how much weight you give to testimony from a 3-year-old, no matter how convincing she sounds." Dr. Williams joined the conversation. "Actually, research shows that very young children are often more reliable witnesses than people think, especially for traumatic events. They tend to remember sensory details very clearly: colors, sounds, movements, and they're less likely than adults to fill in gaps in their memory with assumptions. Plus," Detective Johnson added, "Lily's description has been consistent every time she's talked about it. The red truck, the cracked headlight, the partial license plate sung in that melody. Children that age don't usually make up complex, consistent stories like that." Judge Martinez nodded. "What's our next step?" "I'd like to pay Mr. Wilson a visit today," Detective Johnson said. "Show him a photo of Lily's mom. Ask him about his whereabouts that night. Sometimes when people have been carrying guilt for weeks, they're ready to tell the truth." "And if he doesn't cooperate?" Ms. Rodriguez asked. "Then we get a warrant to examine his truck more closely. The paint chips we found at the scene should match if it's the right vehicle. And there might be other evidence. Fabric from the victim's clothing, DNA evidence, that kind of thing." Back in the courtroom, Lily was having a wonderful time with Rocky. She had discovered that he knew some tricks, like sitting and giving her his paw to shake. She was giggling and clapping her hands, acting like any happy 3-year-old playing with a friendly dog. "Rocky," she said, "you're the best dog in the whole world. You helped me tell about the scary night, and now I don't feel so scared anymore." Mrs. Patterson was watching her granddaughter with amazement. This was the most animated and happy Lily had been since the accident. It was like Rocky had helped her find a way to let go of some of the fear and sadness she had been carrying. When the adults came back into the courtroom, they found Lily teaching Rocky a clapping game. She would clap her hands in a pattern, and Rocky would wag his tail or move his paws like he was trying to clap along. "Look!" Lily called out when she saw them coming back. "Rocky knows how to play games." Judge Martinez smiled. "He certainly is a special dog, isn't he?" "The specialist," Lily agreed, which wasn't exactly a real word, but everyone knew what she meant. Detective Johnson looked at this happy little girl and felt a surge of determination. Someone had hurt her family and then driven away, leaving a 3-year-old to sit with her injured mother until help arrived. But thanks to Lily's courage and Rocky's help, they were about to make sure that person faced justice. "Thank you, Lily," the judge said. "You've been very brave today, and you've helped us understand what happened that night." "Rocky helped, too," Lily said seriously. "We make a good team." And as Detective Johnson left the courthouse to go find Tom Wilson, he couldn't help but think that she was absolutely right. 2 hours after Detective Johnson left the courthouse, his phone rang. Judge Martinez had given everyone a long recess so the police could follow up on Lily's testimony, but she had asked them to return by the afternoon to hear what they had found. Lily was in the courthouse cafeteria with her grandmother and Rocky, sharing a peanut butter sandwich and telling the dog more stories about her life. She seemed completely different from the scared, quiet child who had walked into the courtroom that morning. It was like Rocky had helped her remember that she was still just a regular 3-year-old, even though something terrible had happened to her family. When Detective Johnson's call came through to the courthouse, everyone gathered in Judge Martinez's chambers to hear what he had discovered. The news was exactly what they had hoped for, but also heartbreaking in its own way. "I found Tom Wilson at his house," Detective Johnson reported over the speakerphone. "The truck is definitely the right one. Same damage that Lily described, paint scratches that match the scene, even some fabric caught in the front bumper that looks like it came from the victim's jacket." There was a pause before he continued. "But here's the thing. When I showed Wilson the photo of Lily's mom and told him what happened, he broke down crying. He's been carrying this guilt for 3 weeks, and he was actually relieved when I showed up." Ms. Rodriguez, the prosecutor, leaned forward. "Did he confess?" "More than that," Detective Johnson said. "He wants to come to the courthouse right now to apologize. To the family, to the judge, to everyone. He said he's been having nightmares every night about that little girl sitting alone with her injured mother." Judge Martinez felt a mix of relief and sadness. Justice was important, but she had seen enough cases to know that sometimes the people who cause accidents aren't monsters. They're just regular people who made terrible decisions in moments of panic. "What's his story?" she asked. "He'd been drinking at Murphy's bar after finishing a job," Detective Johnson explained. "Not drunk, but enough to know he shouldn't have been driving. When he hit the victim, he says he got out of the truck and saw the little girl sitting there, and he panicked. He was scared about losing his business license, scared about going to jail, scared about what his own kids would think of him. So he just left," Mr. Thompson said quietly. "He's been trying to work up the courage to turn himself in ever since," Detective Johnson continued. "His wife says he hasn't eaten properly in weeks, hasn't been able to work, just sits around the house looking miserable. When I knocked on his door, she actually seemed relieved too." Back in the cafeteria, Lily was completely unaware of these adult conversations happening around her case. She was more interested in teaching Rocky how to play patty cake, which was hilarious because dogs don't have hands, but Rocky was being very patient and trying to play along by lifting his paws. "Rocky," Lily said seriously, "when my mom gets better, I want you to meet her. She's going to love you so much. She loves all animals, but especially dogs. She always says dogs are better than most people because they're always honest, and they always love you no matter what." Officer Martinez, who had been watching this conversation, felt his heart squeeze a little. This kid had no idea that the man who hurt her mother was about to walk into the same building she was in. He hoped it wouldn't be too overwhelming for her. Mrs. Patterson had been thinking the same thing. "Should we take Lily home?" she asked Dr. Williams. "This might be too much for her to handle." But Dr. Williams had a different idea. "Actually, I think it might be good for her to see that the person who hurt her mom is taking responsibility for what he did. Children Lily's age have a very strong sense of right and wrong. Seeing justice happen might help her feel safer. But only if she wants to," Mrs. Patterson said firmly. "I won't force her to see him if it's going to upset her." When they explained the situation to Lily in very simple terms, her reaction surprised everyone. "The man who hit Mommy wants to say he's sorry?" she asked, tilting her head like she was trying to understand. "Yes," her grandmother said gently. "He knows what he did was wrong and he wants to tell everyone he's sorry." Lily thought about this for a moment, absent-mindedly petting Rocky's soft fur. "Mommy always says that when you do something wrong, you should say sorry and try to make it better. Will saying sorry make Mommy better?" Mrs. Patterson's eyes filled with tears. "No, sweetheart. Mommy is getting better because the doctors are taking good care of her. But saying sorry is still the right thing to do." "Then I want to hear him say sorry," Lily decided. "Rocky can come with me, right?" Officer Martinez nodded. "Rocky will stay right beside you the whole time." When they returned to the courtroom an hour later, everyone could tell that something important was about to happen. Tom Wilson was already there, sitting in the back row with his wife beside him. He was a big man with calloused hands and work. Clothes, the kind of person you might see fixing your roof or painting your house. But today he looked small and broken, like he hadn't slept in weeks. When Tom saw Lily walk into the courtroom with Rocky beside her, he started crying again. This was the little girl he had been having nightmares about, the child who had sat alone with her injured mother because he had been too scared to do the right thing. Lily noticed him crying and looked confused. "Why is that man sad, Rocky?" she asked the dog, like she always did when she didn't understand something. Judge Martinez called the court back into session, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of the tense, uncertain feeling from the morning, there was something that felt almost like a family meeting where everyone was trying to work through a difficult problem together. "Mr. Wilson," Judge Martinez said gently, "I understand. You have something you'd like to say." Tom Wilson stood up slowly, his hands shaking. He looked at Lily, then at Judge Martinez, then back at Lily. "Your Honor, I'm the one who hit this little girl's mother. I was driving that red truck and I was drinking and I made the worst decision of my life when I drove away." The courtroom was completely silent. Even Lily stopped talking to Rocky and listened carefully. "I want to plead guilty to everything," Tom continued, his voice breaking. "Hit and run, driving under the influence, leaving the scene of an accident. Whatever you want to charge me with, I want this family to know how sorry I am." Then he did something that surprised everyone. He walked to the front of the courtroom and knelt down so he was at Lily's eye level, keeping a respectful distance but making sure she could see his face. "Little girl," he said, tears running down his cheeks. "I am so sorry that I hurt your mommy, and I'm sorry that I left you alone when you needed help. That was wrong, and I've been sick about it every day since it happened." Lily studied his face for a long moment, the way children do when they're trying to figure out if a grown-up is telling the truth. Rocky seemed to sense that this was an important moment, because he moved a little closer to Lily, but stayed calm and quiet. "Are you really sorry?" Lily asked, in that direct way that only children can manage. "Yes," Tom said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorrier than I've ever been about anything in my whole life." Lily thought about this for another moment, then looked down at Rocky as if asking for his opinion. The dog just looked back at her with those gentle, patient eyes. "My mommy says that when people are really sorry, they try to make things better," Lily said. Can you make things better? Tom nodded, wiping his eyes. I'm going to try. I'm going to pay for all your mommy's medical bills, and I'm going to accept whatever punishment the judge thinks is fair. And I promise I'll never ever drive after drinking again. Okay, Lily said simply. Rocky thinks you mean it. Rocky is very good at knowing when people are telling the truth. And somehow, in that moment, something healing happened in that courtroom. It wasn't just about punishment or justice anymore. It was about a man taking responsibility for his actions, a little girl showing incredible strength and forgiveness, and a community coming together to make sure something like this never happened again. Judge Martinez looked around her courtroom and realized that what she was witnessing wasn't just a legal proceeding. It was a lesson in courage, honesty, and the power of doing the right thing, even when it's hard. And it was all made possible by a 3-year-old girl and her friendship with a very special dog. 6 months later, the county courthouse looked exactly the same from the outside, but inside courtroom number 7, something very special was happening. It wasn't another trial or legal hearing. Instead, it was a celebration, and the guest of honor was a familiar German shepherd named Rocky. Lily walked into the courthouse holding her mom's hand. Her mother, Rachel, was walking slowly with a cane. But she was walking. The doctors had said it would take time, and there would always be some pain. But she was alive and getting stronger every day. That was more than anyone had dared to hope. For in those first scary days after the accident, "Look, Mommy," Lily said excitedly, pointing toward the front of the courtroom. "There's Rocky, and Officer Martinez, and Judge Martinez. Everyone's here." Rachel smiled, squeezing her daughter's small hand. "Yes, sweetheart. Today is Rocky's special day, isn't it?" The courthouse was packed with people who had heard about what happened 6 months ago. There were police officers, lawyers, reporters, and regular citizens who had been touched by the story of a 3-year-old girl who found her courage through friendship with a therapy dog. Mrs. Patterson, Lily's grandmother, was sitting in the front row with tears of joy in her eyes. She looked at her granddaughter, who was practically bouncing with excitement, and marveled at how much healing had taken place. The scared, quiet little girl was completely gone. In her place was a confident, happy 4-year-old who loved to tell everyone about her best friend Rocky and how he had helped her be brave. Dr. Williams was there too, taking notes for a research paper she was writing about animal-assisted therapy with child witnesses. What had happened in this courtroom had changed how courts across the state thought about helping traumatized children. Because of Rocky and Lily, other children would have therapy dogs available when they needed to testify about difficult things. Detective Johnson sat with his wife and teenage daughter, who had begged to come meet the famous Lily and Rocky they had heard so much about. The detective still got chills thinking about that day when a 3-year-old had provided the most detailed and accurate witness testimony of his career. Even Tom Wilson was there, sitting quietly in the back with his family. It had been a difficult 6 months for him too, but in a different way. He had spent 3 months in jail, lost his driver's license for 2 years, and had to attend counseling sessions about drinking and driving. But he had also kept his promise to help pay for Rachel's medical bills, and he had started volunteering at a local organization that helped accident victims. More importantly, Tom had been sober for 6 months. He said that seeing the courage of a 3-year-old girl had made him realize he needed to find some courage of his own. He was rebuilding his life and his relationships with his own children, who were proud of him for finally doing the right thing. Judge Martinez stood at the front of the courtroom, but today she wasn't wearing her serious black robes. Instead, she was dressed in a regular business suit because today wasn't about legal proceedings. Today was about celebrating heroes. "Ladies and gentlemen," Judge Martinez began, her voice carrying easily through the packed courtroom. 6 months ago, something remarkable happened in this room. A little girl found the courage to tell the truth about something terrible that had happened to her family. And she did it with the help of a very special dog. Rocky sat beside Officer Martinez wearing a new collar with a shiny badge on it. His tail wagged gently as he looked around the room full of people. He seemed to understand that this was a happy occasion, even if he didn't know exactly what was being celebrated. Today, the judge continued, we're here to honor police dog Rocky for his outstanding service to our community and to celebrate the partnership between humans and animals that makes our justice system more compassionate and effective. The crowd applauded, and Lily clapped her hands so enthusiastically that several people around her started laughing. She had been looking forward to this day for weeks, ever since her mom explained that Rocky was getting an award for being such a good helper. But before we present Rocky with his award, Judge Martinez said, I think there's someone who has something special to say to him. All eyes turned to Lily, who was practically wiggling with excitement. Her mom helped her walk to the front of the courtroom, where a small microphone had been set up at just the right height for a 4-year-old. Hi, everyone, Lily said into the microphone, her voice clear and confident. The crowd chuckled at her. Enthusiasm! I want to tell you about my friend Rocky, she continued, looking over at the dog who was watching her intently. He's the bravest, kindest, most special dog in the whole world. When I was really scared and couldn't talk about the bad thing that happened, Rocky helped me find my words. Rachel wiped away a tear as she watched her daughter speak so confidently, in front of all these people. This was the same little girl who, 6 months ago, had been too frightened to speak above a whisper. Rocky didn't just listen to me, Lily went on, getting more animated as she talked. He made me feel safe. He made me feel like I could be brave too. And you know what? When you feel safe, it's easier to tell the truth. Officer Martinez looked down at Rocky, who seemed to understand that Lily was talking about him. The dog's ears were perked up, and he was looking back and forth between Lily and the crowd, like he was proud to be part of something important. My mommy taught me that helping people is the most important thing you can do, Lily continued. And Rocky is the best helper I ever met. He helped me, and he helped my mommy get justice, and he helped everyone understand what really happened. That scary night. The courtroom was absolutely silent except for Lily's voice. Even the reporters had stopped taking notes and were just listening to this remarkable little girl. But you know what the best part is? Lily asked, looking directly at Rocky. Rocky didn't just help me that one day. He's still my friend. He comes to visit me and Mommy sometimes, and we play in the park, and I tell him about school, and he listens to everything I say. This was true. Officer Martinez had been bringing Rocky to visit Lily and her family regularly. The bond between the child and the dog had been so strong that it seemed wrong to break it completely once the court case was over. So, Rocky, Lily said, walking over to stand next to the big German shepherd, thank you for being my friend and for helping me be brave. You're getting this award because you're a hero, but I want you to know that you'll always be my hero most of all. She reached up and hugged Rocky around his neck, and the dog gently nuzzled her cheek in return. The entire courtroom erupted in applause, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Judge Martinez stepped forward with a beautiful plaque and a new collar with Rocky's name and the words "Community Hero" engraved on it. But before she could present the awards, something unexpected happened. Tom Wilson stood up from his seat in the back of the courtroom. People turned to look at him, and the room grew quiet again. He had asked permission to attend the ceremony, but no one expected him to speak. "Excuse me," he said, his voice shaky but determined. "I know I don't have a right to say anything here, but I wanted everyone to know something." He paused, looking at Lily and her family. That little girl right there? She didn't just help catch me and make me face what I did wrong. She taught me what real courage looks like. Watching her be so brave, even when she was scared, made me realize I needed to find some courage too. I've been sober for 6 months now, Tom continued, his voice getting stronger. I've been going to meetings. I've been trying to make amends for what I did. And I've been working with other people who struggle with drinking and driving. And every time I want to give up or take the easy way out, I think about that little girl who did the hard thing because it was the right thing. He looked directly at Lily. Thank you for showing me what being brave really means. Lily looked at her mom, then back at Tom. In her simple, direct way, she said, "You're welcome. I'm glad you're better now." After the formal ceremony ended and Rocky had received his awards, something beautiful happened. Instead of everyone rushing to leave, people stayed to talk and share stories. Children who had been in the audience came up to meet Rocky and Lily. Parents thanked Officer Martinez for his work with therapy animals. Lawyers and judges discussed how they could implement similar programs in their own courts. But the most special moment happened when the crowd had mostly cleared out. Lily was sitting on the courthouse steps with Rocky, telling him about her new favorite book, when a little boy about her age approached shyly. "Is that the famous Rocky?" the boy asked quietly. "Yes," Lily said proudly. "This is Rocky. He's my friend. Do you want to meet him?" The boy nodded, and Lily spent the next 15 minutes introducing him to Rocky and explaining how therapy dogs help people feel better. She was already becoming an advocate, helping other children understand that it was okay to be scared, but that there were people and animals who could help them be brave. As the sun set behind the courthouse that evening, Rachel watched her daughter, playing with Rocky in the small park across the street. 6 months ago, she had wondered if either of them would ever feel normal again. Now, watching Lily laugh and play, she knew that sometimes the worst things that happen to us can lead to the most beautiful discoveries about courage, friendship, and the power of doing what's right. "Come on, Rocky," Lily called out as her family prepared to head home. "Mom says we can get ice cream to celebrate your special day." Rocky's tail wagged enthusiastically, which everyone agreed was definitely his way of saying, "Yes, please." And as they walked toward the ice cream shop together, a little girl, her mother, her grandmother, a police officer, and one very special dog, passers-by couldn't help but smile at the sight. It was a reminder that even in a world where bad things sometimes happen, there are always good people ready to help. Friendship can be found in the most unexpected places, and courage comes in all sizes, even 3-year-old size.